Earlier this week, two oil tankers, Kairos and Virat, linked to Russia's so-called shadow fleet were struck by unmanned underwater drones off the Black Sea coast, only a few dozen nautical miles from Turkey's shores. The strike triggered fires and evacuations. All crew members made it out safely. In response, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has now issued a sharp warning, saying that the war between Russia and Ukraine has now reached Turkey's doorstep. But what does that really mean for Turkey, for the Black Sea, for NATO and for Russia? Welcome to TFI Global as we now dig into what happened, who might be behind it, what are the implications and where could this go next? On November 28, 2025, Turkish maritime authorities say that the tanker Kairos was hit off the Turkish Black Sea coast, roughly 28 nautical miles from the Kocaeli province. The vessel caught fire and the crew, 25 people, were evacuated safely. Almost immediately, a second tanker Virat was also reported hit, about 35 nautical miles off the Turkish coast. According to Turkish Transport Ministry, external interference was suspected: mine, drone, unmanned underwater vehicle or missile. Soon after, a source from Ukrainian security services claimed responsibility. According to that source, Ukraine used domestically built naval drones, so-called Sea Baby drones, to carry out the strikes. Both tankers were described as part of Russia's shadow fleet, ships used to circumvent Western sanctions by carrying oil under alternative flags and registries. Reportedly, the vessels were sailing empty en route to load oil at Novorossiysk, Russia, which suggests the goal was disruption of Russia's oil export capacity. These attacks mark a significant shift. Strikes are no longer confined to the northern Black Sea close to Ukraine. We have earlier seen how Ukraine has been targeting Russian oil assets linked to Central Asia, and now these incidents are occurring all the way in the Black Sea. The day after the attacks, Turkey President Erdogan called the strikes a worrying escalation, saying Turkey could not accept attacks that threaten navigation safety, human lives and the environment, especially inside its exclusive economic zone. The Turkish Foreign Ministry echoed this, warning that the incidents posed serious risks to regional security, property, marine environment and shipping. Ankara said it will engage with all relevant parties to prevent further escalation, protect environmental and economic interests, and preserve safe passage in its waters. But then, this is nothing new. Erdogan has been playing both sides for years. On one hand, he talks of good relations with Russia, and on the other, he demands stronger ties with the West. We have seen how Erdogan rejected the Russian S-400 so he could get his hands on the US F-35 jet. A dangerous double game Turkey plays against both NATO and Russia. Now fearing strong repercussions, it seems Erdogan is just reacting to a dangerous spillover. Or could there be more behind the scenes? Could this be a part of a broader geopolitical game involving NATO, other Western powers, or pressure on Russia's oil lifeline? Let's explore the possible motives. The targeted vessels belong to what's called Russia's shadow fleet, a network of tankers often under alternative flags, registries, used to smuggle Russian oil out despite the sanctions. For Ukraine, hitting these tankers deals a heavy blow to Moscow's ability to sell oil and generate revenue for the war. According to official sources, the struck ships had a capacity to carry nearly $70 million worth of oil. The expansion of drone strikes into southern Black Sea waters near Turkey suggests that Kyiv is stretching its operational range, perhaps aiming to signal that no part of Russia's maritime logistics is safe. Some analysts argue this could be a coordinated effort with Western backing, intelligence, logistics, perhaps tacit consent, given that the shadow fleet is a key target of Western sanctions and policy. Could this escalation be a prelude to a broader strategy aiming to turn the Black Sea into a de facto contested war zone, thereby pressuring Russia economically and militarily? Possibly. Could parts of NATO or Western governments be quietly facilitating or approving, at least diplomatically, such strikes on sanctioned ships? That remains speculative. Could Turkey itself, while publicly condemning the strikes, be quietly positioning to gain leverage? Some commentators highlight that Ankara's condemnation could be more about preserving its maritime trade credibility and avoiding environmental liability than siding with Russia. None of that is confirmed, but the shift of combat into the southern Black Sea is real. The bigger question now is, how might Russia respond? First, damage to its shadow fleet reduces Russia's ability to sell oil abroad. Over time, repeated strikes may force Moscow to withdraw or minimize use of risky tankers, adding strain to an already struggling war economy. Russia could respond by increasing naval military presence in the Black Sea or bolstering escorts for tankers, which could risk escalation, especially near Turkish waters or Bosphorus entrance. Another possibility is that retaliatory strikes, either Western Black Sea, certain shipping routes, or even attacks on Turkish-flagged or neutral vessels, though that would carry high diplomatic risk, especially with Turkey and possibly NATO indirectly involved. Russia may also lobby or pressure international players, shipping companies, insurers, port authorities to avoid using shadow fleet vessels, effectively accelerating the collapse of the sanctioned oil export network. Indeed, insurance firms are already reacting. Global shipping insurance rates for the Black Sea region have reportedly surged after the tanker attacks. In short, the maritime component of the war is ramping up, and Black Sea shipping, trade routes and regional stability may all be collateral damage. For Turkey, NATO adjacent countries and global maritime trade, the consequences could be serious. The attacks happened inside Turkey's EEZ, risking navigation, environment and lives. For a country heavily dependent on maritime trade and shipping through the Black Sea and Bosphorus, such risks cannot be ignored. On the other hand, Ankara's geopolitical position is complex. Turkey is formally part of NATO but has maintained ties with Moscow and has previously tried to position itself as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. This also begs the question, who else was involved? It is highly unlikely that Ukraine could have conducted such attacks on its own. Was Turkey helping it in logistics? Were the UK, France and Germany involved in any capacity, as they have been backing the face-off with Russia constantly? For now, by publicly criticizing the strikes, Erdogan is hoping to maintain plausible deniability to safeguard Turkey's interests on both sides. But behind the scenes, Turkey may quietly benefit from weakening Russia's oil export capacity, which could raise energy prices globally, benefited by Turkish pipelines, transit routes or leverage in negotiations. The war between Russia and Ukraine is possibly entering a new phase, one where supply chain disruption and maritime choke point pressure become as important as purely battlefield operations. For global maritime trade, the risk is rising. Insurance premiums are going up. Shipping companies may reroute, and neutral or non-Western vessels may become reluctant to traverse the Black Sea, threatening trade, grain export routes, and energy flows. For Turkey, the stakes are high, balancing its security, trade interests, and diplomatic posture. If the Black Sea becomes a contested zone, Ankara could be pressured from both east and west. For Russia and Ukraine, this maritime war, the strike on the shadow fleet, the use of drones may be as decisive as land battles. Cutting off oil revenue, constraining logistics, forcing rerouting, these could erode Russia's long-term war capacity more than battlefield losses. If you found this analysis helpful, hit like, subscribe and tell us who do you think is responsible and what is likely to happen next. Will the Black Sea turn into a full-blown maritime war zone, or will diplomacy and pressure cool things down? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you.